hot on the heels of announcing that the game is delayed to 2026, we are getting the second trailer for GTA 6. And like the first trailer, this does in many ways look absolutely stunning, but on camera pans like that, like it's very clear this is 30 FPS. Also, it says this is captured on the PlayStation 5. So this is very clearly running at 30 FPS on the PlayStation 5, which makes visual targets like this actually seem a little bit more reasonable. And again, you can see some breakups in the presentation that are consistent with a lot of this running in real time. Now, this trailer doesn't show a lot of like gameplay, it's more of these cutscene type scenes, but stop right here. When you see this scene in motion, I want you to look at the chain link fencing as it overlaps. Now again, YouTube compression is gonna kill a lot of this, but it's very clear that this is nothing like a native 4K, and there's definitely some like reconstruction going on. That definitely gets quite blurred as we go through those chain link fences, right? We can kind of go frame by frame through this. Again, loss of detail due to YouTube compression. But yeah, those chain link fences overlapping other chain link fences with the birds in the background, yes, that's hard to do on YouTube in general. But yeah, I think there's a lot of signs here that I think the console, at least in its current state, again, a year out from launch, probably 1440p 30 target. Now, things do look excellent in many ways. Some of these scenes, characters with longer hair, as we're seeing here, like the hair rendering looks excellent. When we saw the first GTA 6 trailer, some of it looked like, could this be possible in real time? But I actually do think since then we've seen games like, whatever you think of Dragon Age Veilguard, they showed hair rendering physics that can be accomplished on consoles at this kind of level. Also, we pause here where we're seeing the reflections on the water. Like, I don't think we're necessarily seeing any reflections that are necessarily requiring hardware ray tracing to make it possible or anything like that. In general, this does look phenomenal, but none of this seems to be like stuff that is out of the realm of possibility with a massive budget and massive talent and great art direction and all of that. Anyway, so with all of that being said, again, this is currently targeting PlayStation 5, which means that people on PC have probably a lot of questions, and I have somewhat limited answers, at least as far as anything I could say with certainty, but I do have a lot of thoughts based on what we've seen here. Again, PlayStation 5 being a what, like I said, appears to be something like a 1440p 30 FPS target from everything we've seen revealed so far, gives us some idea of what kind of hardware might be required to do, you know, I think PC gamers want 60 FPS. What would it take to do 1440p 60, for example? On the GPU side of things, I think that question is going to be easier to answer. On the CPU side of things, I'm not sure we have as much to go on, because I think in a game this big, that would certainly be something to keep in mind. Anyway, and again, right there is the confirmation that this was indeed captured on PS5. Also, it does not say PS5 Pro. And as far as I can tell, the footage here doesn't seem to be out of line from what we saw in the first trailer, which was before there was a PS5 Pro. So there's that. All right, we've looked through the footage. Again, so what are the thoughts on what this means about the PC experience? Well, once again, it's been confirmed that it is skipping, well, how should I say by confirmed? So it does not specifically say it is skipping PC on launch, but is very much not confirming PC on launch. It is May 26, 2026, PS5, captured on PS5, also Xbox Series XS. There's no mention of PC here, so it is very clear that it will be a delayed PC launch, as is kind of typical for Rockstar. Former Rockstar devs have gone on the record explaining why they would choose to skip PC on launch. I'll link all my sources in the video description, but they basically just go into saying that they expect most of their sales to be happening on consoles, and they want to prioritize optimizations for the primary platform, where they expect the majority of their sales, not the PC sales, would be minimal. And I really don't know. There's a lot of PC gamers out there, and I think it's grown a lot since maybe previous GTA releases, for example. So I don't know if I agree with their statements, but those are the kind of statements that they're giving. Again, the optimizing one particular platform could definitely make sense, and it is more difficult to optimize for PC than it is for a single, console hardware, a few different consoles. So, I mean, I get it. And I think when I try to answer any sort of question about how is this going to run on PC at this point, a huge part of that just comes into, well, how optimized will it be on PC? And what sort of graphic settings are they going to allow you to target? Because right now we're seeing how it's running captured on a PlayStation 5. Now, PlayStation 5 graphics card, for example, is somewhat similar to an AMD Radeon RX 6700 non-XT version. To be fair, though, there is no actual exact PC equivalent to the kind of hardware that is running in the PS5. So I can't tell you exactly what's there, but in many games, hardware-wise and performance-wise, this is kind of our best bet to get kind of a baseline. So if you use something like Tech PowerUp's relative performance chart, you can get an idea of how other graphics cards would scale. So something along the lines of an RX 6700, let's say that's targeting 1440p 30 FPS, as seems to be the case from the trailers, and that's at PS5 equivalent settings. So I would imagine that on PC, especially if they're taking, 6 months, a year to delay it and work on it. I mean, we don't have any actual numbers on that. It's very possible that they will allow PC to scale much higher than what consoles do. So maybe we'd be even calling this like medium settings compared to what the PC would have on offer. But let's say we just wanted to match those console settings. And again, consoles are often going to be heavily optimized more so on PC. I would actually expect a developer like Rockstar to maybe be doing that as much as possible, really trying to get out every last bit of performance, optimizing for that specific console hardware. So PC for equivalent settings may perform worse, I would imagine, compared to the comparable hardware. That being said, if we call this 1440p 30, we're talking cards like a 2070 Super is kind of in this ballpark, although that's only 8 gigabytes of VRAM. And looking at what we're seeing in those trailers, I think it's very likely that to match PS5 settings, you are going to need more than 8 gigabytes of VRAM. So again, cards like the 4060 might be along that lines performance-wise, but not VRAM-wise. I think that could end up being an issue. So maybe cards like the 6700 XT that have 12 gigabytes of VRAM might be, a better fit for that. Cards like, once we get beyond this, we're getting cards like the 7700 XT or RX 6800. These are cards that are more, maybe even PS5 Pro-ish level, which is interesting. And NVIDIA GPUs like the RTX 4070, again, we're talking 60% more powerful than what's in a base PS5. So I'm thinking cards like a 4070, given the fact that they have 12 gigabytes of VRAM and are significantly more powerful than what's in the PS5, is my guess about where you would want to be for the PC version to, okay, let's take that 1440p 30 on consoles. Usually if you ran at an unlocked frame rate, it could actually be running above 30. That's just kind of capping at the minimums. So, giving you that additional 60% more performance, I would expect cards like a 4070, due to the fact that they have more than 8 gigabytes of VRAM, 12, to run PS5 equivalent settings ish at maybe a 1440p 60-ish type experience. But again, you might be wanting to rely on DLSS upscaling to make up some of that difference. Because if we're technically going from 1440p 30 with an RX 6700 baseline, and you really want to scale that exact experience locked up to 60 FPS, you would technically need a doubling of GPU performance. And if we're doing that, then cards like the 4070 Super or an RTX 5070 are closer to that actual doubling of performance. So an RTX 5070, an RTX 3090, RX 9070, I would expect cards like this to be actually what you would want for 1440p 60 FPS without heavily relying on resolution scaling. And I'm just talking like PS5 equivalent settings. Again, though, Massive amounts of this depend on what are the optimization differences between PS5 and console. Now, the other thing though is, let's say that you can get your graphics card running up to 60 FPS. There's also the question on the CPU side of things. Now, the PS5 CPU isn't incredibly powerful or anything like that. It's, along the lines of a Ryzen 5 3600-ish type performance. But the thing is, if they're targeting a 30 FPS, frame time budget, if the CPU is only a little bit, kind of within that window, doubling the gaming performance of a Ryzen 5 3600 can actually be pretty demanding. If that was actually required to hit 60 FPS. And given just the nature of GTA games, I mean, we haven't really seen a lot of gameplay happening here, but I would expect, due to the nature of, the big open world environment, I would imagine lots of NPCs, lots of world systems going on, lots of physics, lots of that if indeed the consoles are only targeting 30 FPS, that could be on the CPU as well as the GPU. And if the CPU is only targeting 30 FPS, these are the games we tend to see struggle on the CPU side on PC releases. The games that have, regardless of resolution, games that seem to be developed around a 30 FPS frame time budget on console tend to struggle on PC CPUs. Now, again, we do have the fact that the game is not only delayed to May of 2026, on consoles, but again, I would expect at least a 6-month to year delay for the PC version beyond that point. So we're talking likely going into 2027, where we'd be expecting like the next generation of GPUs, the next generation of CPUs should probably be out by then. But I think maybe that's the thought I'll end on here, is while you're maybe interested, like, is your current PC ready for GTA 6? I would say that if you're planning a new build around GTA 6, I think it would make sense to at least wait until we have a release date for the PC version of GTA 6, unless there's some other game you really want to upgrade for right now. Because if your PC is hanging in there right now, honestly, pricing's not great right now. So rushing out to make a build because you're excited for GTA 6 is probably not the best choice. Given the fact that we would probably expect at least one more generation of GPUs and CPUs to be out by the time we'd be actually getting a PC version of this title. Anyway, all my sources will be linked in the video description. That's my thoughts on it so far. The game certainly looks impressive for what it's able to do on PS5, but again, keep in mind, looking at the trailer, it kind of looks like 1440p 30 type target, and we're not seeing a lot of open world gameplay at this point in time either. So there's a lot of question marks here. Hopefully you guys found today's video useful and or interesting. Sorry I can't give like a whole lot of concrete details, but that's my best thoughts I can give you so far based on the very limited information we have available at this time. Hope all of you have an excellent day.